Welcome back to the farm in the beginning of a new week, which is starting off with quite a bit of drama, unfortunately. As I mentioned, I was expecting both my does to kindle this weekend, and sure enough, both of them had litters last night when it was below freezing and snowing. Julia did a great job, and her 7 are all nestled in really good and nice and toasty warm. Lydia, not so much. She pulled out her fur and just put it on top of the straw and had her 3 there. One of them didn't survive the night, and the other 2, even though I gave them sheep's wool and some extra hay to keep them warm, just aren't warming up. So I've just moved them and Lydia into the house in the big dog crate. The babies should be okay. The older babies should be okay. They're 6 weeks, 7 weeks old now, so they're mostly weaned anyway, and if they aren't, they're ready to be weaned. So I'm going to keep an eye on them and see if they need to get moved into a crate until I can get the run done. Julia is being incredibly protective. She has tried to bite me several times while I was trying to do my rescue operations. So cross your fingers for these little guys. It's a terrible way to go by being cold, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. In the meantime, we're doing some work in the garden, even though it's still 34 degrees and likely to snow anytime this afternoon. But I have to take advantage of the resources that I have. And one of the resources that I have is a lovely person from my church who wants to learn gardening and is willing to do manual labor. So everybody, this is Agnes. Agnes, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
So they're going to be helping me out for 3 days this week and 3 days next week. And hopefully we could get most of the heavy work done by then. And I've got potatoes. I picked up seed potatoes on Saturday, so we can get these beds turned and get the potatoes in the next couple of days. It is supposed to warm up starting tomorrow. If you count 45 degrees being warmed up, I do when it's 32. So we're going to count it as a win. I don't want this poor thing to have to do all the heavy work themselves, so I need to get to work. Oh, nice. Have Agnes back again today, and we are getting potatoes in the ground. I love planting potatoes because it goes really stupidly fast and you don't have to be precious about it. So we're doing, for anybody keeping track at home, we're doing red potatoes on this end and white potatoes, waxy potatoes on that end. I know I'm going to forget it, which is why I have to put it in the video. This shouldn't take us too long. I'm hoping we can still get the onion beds turned because I also have some onion starts and sets that I'd like to get in the ground. Oh, and let's take a look at that seed experiment that I tried this fall. No, that's grass. All right. So none of the seeds took. So we can turn this bed guilt-free. A little frustrating, but... And I effed up. You remember, I put the started rolls out here when it was so nice and warm, and then it got so freaking cold. And it killed most of them off. I may stick them in the ground anyway just to see if anything takes. But with the starts I got, that should fill these 3 beds. So we should be good to go. My garlic is actually doing really well. I had one problem in this bed where the mulch was piled too high here. So you can see the leaves are having a hard time getting out. So I kind of took some of that down to put in the end beds down here. But they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And this bed is looking just as good. So my phone keeps trying to update the software and cutting off my videos. So as I was saying, I should have plenty of garlic to get me through this winter. I'm still going through last year's garlic, which is a good thing. It means I planted more than enough, and I can put some of it out on the farm stand if I want to make a little extra money. Yes. And either direction is fine. productive. We got all the potatoes planted, and we got the starts and sets that I had planted. It only filled a bed and a half with the onions though. So I'm gonna have to pick up some more sets. And I realized the stuff that I got Walla Wallas, I got Vidalias, and I got candy onions. None of them are storage onions. So what was the point of that? So the local nursery is opening this weekend, and I know they usually have starts and sets. So I'll try and get my storage onions from them. And then it's on to the seasonal stuff. But that won't be until Friday because I've got appointments the next 2 days. So I'm going to go in and make dinner for Agnes to say thank you for helping. And we'll be back at it on Friday. So today is, like I said, a really busy day. I've got to leave here right after work to go for an appointment, and then I've got a meeting at church, so I'm not going to get home till 9:30 or 10 o'clock tonight. But I didn't want the day to be a total waste. And I am struggling with overabundance. I have eggs coming out my ears. I've got all these. I've got all of these. This entire bucket is full of eggs. And they aren't selling at my farm stand very well. So I got to do something with them. I've been feeding the older ones back to the chickens, which they've been ecstatic about. And they can use the extra protein even now. It's spring, but the bugs are still waking up. So I've got it, but I don't want to feed all of them to the chickens because then it feels kind of like a waste of money. So, excuse me. So I'm going to do an experiment, and this is something that I've read about, heard about, seen numerous times, but I've not tried it myself. So come along with me for an experiment in water glassing eggs. Water glassing eggs is really very simple. It's a way to preserve eggs, raw eggs, long term, so that you can use them during the periods when your chickens don't lay very well. And it's, like I said, it's a very simple process. You fill a container of some sort, a food grade container. You can use a 3-gallon bucket. You could use mason jars. That's what I'm going to use because I have these half-gallon jars. You fill them with your eggs, and then you cover them with a solution of water and pickling lime. Pickling lime is also called hydrated lime. And you want to make sure you get a food grade one. So this is one that's used for canning vegetables and making pickles, hence the pickling lime. And so it's an ounce of this for every quart of water. I've got 2 quarts of water in here, so I'm going to measure out 2 ounces of this. And then you just pour this over the eggs and seal it up, put it in your basement where it's dark and cool, and just leave them until you need them. And apparently they come out tasting almost exactly the same as they would have fresh. I've seen that the flavor is a little stronger. The flavor of the egg is a little stronger. But that's the only difference I've seen reported. Now, again, I haven't done this myself, so I don't know for sure, but we're going to find out. So let's load up this jar. And you want to do this very carefully. I did this once already, to figure out how many eggs fit in a jar this size, and it's about 17 to 18 depending on the size of the eggs. Now you'll notice these are not washed. Raw eggs have a coating on the shell called a bloom, and that kind of covers all of the pores in the surface of the eggshell and keeps any bacteria from getting into the egg. So the nice thing about this is if you have unwashed eggs, you can just store them on the counter like I do. Because the bloom protects them, they don't have to be refrigerated if they haven't been washed. And that's why you'll see in Europe, they have the eggs just out on the shelf, where here in the States, they have to be refrigerated. But we're going to take advantage of that bloom, and the lime is going to give the bloom a little extra boost in filling up those pores so that no bacteria can get in and break it down. And that's going to be the science behind what we're experimenting with. There's no way to fill these spaces perfectly because you're working with a round item in a straight-sided vessel. So there's going to be lots of gaps, which again is the good thing about water, is it just fills in all those gaps. And I can't really shake the jar to settle it because then I risk cracking the eggs. But I do kind of roll it a little bit, maybe. So that is 17 eggs. And you can see there's quite a bit of space here, but I can't really squeeze anything else into some of these empty spaces down here. Maybe once I add the water, it will drop a little bit. So we will try that and see, but let's get this solution mixed up. And that's that. They're water glassed. So now I just have to put it into storage and wait for winter. I've got 3 more of these jars, and way too many more eggs, so let's load up some jars. Just like that, I've got about 5 dozen eggs stored for winter. I'm experimenting because I'm not sure how this is going to work out. I'm using the smaller jars. If this works, I think next year I would switch to 2-gallon buckets. Although the benefit of using this size, especially since I live on my own, is I'm not opening up a large quantity all at once. So if I'm opening up just a dozen and a half at a time, that's within a framework for me to use fairly quickly. Whereas if I opened a bigger, like a 2-gallon bucket of it, I don't know how fast I would use that many eggs. Depending on the time of the year, it might be nice to have at Christmas time when I'm doing a lot of baking. So these are going to go into storage in the basement, and I need to look up if I need to shake them periodically or just kind of swirl them around every once in a while to keep that lye moving. The pantries I've seen these in, the lye has all settled out to the bottom, so I don't think it dissolves, but I'll have to do a little more research. But that's it. That's the whole technique, and that's probably the easiest food preservation I've done, short of letting garlic cure. We've got a beautiful day today. It's supposed to be in the 60s today. I do not have Agnes today, so I am going to take the opportunity to try and get as much of the rabbit run finished as I can. If I can get the roof done, and if I can get the wire walls done, then all I have left to do is the door and cutting the hatch for the rabbits to come and go. And that, well, the door may take me a while, but the hatch won't take me very long. So I'm going to do something that you're not to want to break one of the cardinal rules of vlogging. And I'm going to try something for the first time on camera. I think I mentioned I had to get a special blade for my circular saw. And this is the blade. I don't know if you can see in there how small those teeth are and how close together. That's supposed to make for a clean cut on the poly whatever roofing panels, polycarbonate, that's the word. So I've got that installed. I've marked up the panel. So these two are going to be 3-foot sections, and then this piece is going to be a 2-foot section, just because that's what's left over. I need 5. So these 2-foot sections are going to overlap to cover the whole roof because, yes, I have 2 panels. I also have a lot of supervisors. Every time I walk out the back door, they come running up to me like they're expecting treats. So I'm going to test this out. Cross your fingers, see if it works. Hopefully it won't just shatter the plastic, which is why I'm doing it on the 2-foot piece rather than in the middle of the 2 3-foot pieces, because this way, if it does shatter the plastic, I will just really have broken this one end on the 3-foot that I can tuck up under the existing panels, which I'm going to have to do anyway so that the water sheets off properly when it rains. I'm nervous about this because I'm still very nervous around power tools and I don't know what I'm doing. What could go wrong? So the answer to the question, how long does it take to actually get something done, is always probably a lot less time than you spend worrying about how long it's going to take to get something done. That took me 15 minutes. Now I did screw up the one cut. Of course it would be my last cut. But that's okay. I will just tuck those ends up under the existing sheets and call it a day. Now I told Josh that I should be able to get the rest of this done myself. I may have been optimistic. I do have a ladder. Let's see how much of this we can do. It takes longer to fret about it than it does to actually do it. So that's the roof for the most part done. I even had enough to have a little bit of an overhang so that if it drips off, it's not going to drip right into the run. I do need to have Josh come out and do that second or the top of this last set of tiles. I couldn't reach them from the ladder, so I need a tall person. But that will take 5 minutes. That's not a big job. So now I've got wire to do and the door. I have an appointment after work, and then after that I'm gonna get started on the wire. that was so much more work than it needed to be. I had thought it would just be a real simple job of running the wire around the bottom, stapling it in, boom, 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 Bob's your uncle. But nothing would line up flush, so I ended up having to do each side individually, which I'm probably also going to have to do with the chicken wire, which is really going to suck. Ugh. So, sun setting, I'm done. Rabbits are in bed. I gotta put the chickens to bed. And I guess I gotta eat something. I don't know what I'm gonna eat. I'd make a cheese souffle, but I don't have any cheese. I'm grabbing a little time this morning to not pot up, but to spread out some of my seed snails, give the seedlings a little more room, and also to fertilize them. They are going through the food really quickly. You can see how kind of gray looking those are and a little red. And that's a bad sign. That's a sign that they're hungry. Everything's watered well. They just don't have enough to eat with such a small amount of compost. And that's why you use compost in seed snails in the first place, is because compost have nutrients in it, whereas seed starting medium doesn't. And that's also why if you do start seeds in pots with seed starting medium, you need to pot them up if they're going to stay in those pots for a long time, just because otherwise they'll starve to death. I have been watering these a little bit with a liquid fertilizer, and it doesn't really seem to have helped. So I'm hoping fresh compost, and I've got an organic fertilizer, powdered fertilizer that I'm adding just along the bottoms, will help reinvigorate these and get them going. A lot of these, like these are cabbages, I would have expected to have second leaves by now because they've been up for quite a while, but they really haven't developed those second true leaves. So I can't put them out in the garden, even though the temperatures would allow me to, just because until they have their second set of true leaves, they're not good to go. So let's work on getting some of these beefed up. So I ran out of compost. I had to resort to some potting soil I had, which isn't as good because it doesn't have as much life in it as compost does, which is why I gave that last batch some extra fertilizer to help it along. I still have 2 or 3 rolls I need to redo. I'm not going to redo the lettuce, and I'm not going to redo the spinach because that's going to go right out into the garden probably this afternoon. Agnes is coming over today, and we're going to do some more work outside. And the beds that we need to do are the beds that are due planting. So beets, spinach, lettuce are all good to go in the garden. I could plant carrots. We'll see if we get to the carrot beds. I have to run out on my lunch break anyway to pick up some rabbit feed and some new shavings for the chickens, so I'll grab a bag of compost while I'm there and see if I can get any of this done this afternoon.